Well, I want to read an essay that I wrote about what it is to be sexually active in India and what it means so particularly under Narendra Modi's government. And one of the things that I'm going to be talking about in my essay is a law which is, the Section 377, which is said to criminalize homosexual sex, but that's not necessarily true. And I think it's very important to state that it's not specifically discriminatory towards homosexuals, but that it discriminates against everyone, and that anybody who has sex other than peno-vaginal is liable, guilty under this law, and therefore it deserves to be read down as it has in most other civilized societies. So I think that part of what I want to say in this talk and why I'm here is also to talk about how widely it discriminates, because it's thought of as an anti-gay or an anti-homosexual law, and while it is that, it's also other things, and that I think deserves to be brought to light. The other thing also that I'm going to be speaking about in my talk is the fact that a lot of young Indians are quite unique and singular in that a lot of them don't choose to identify in any particular way as either straight or lesbian or gay or bisexual. And also these are categories that came out of the American rhetoric out of the 60s. So it's interesting and refreshing that people who are today young are choosing to exercise their right to not conform and to be anyone in particular. That's very refreshing. But as you quite rightly pointed out, and in sharp contrast to that are laws like Section 377, which were brought in by the British, and still exist to govern people's private lives and what they do in their bedroom. It's very important to add to the debate the fact that it is not specific to homosexuals, that all people who are sexual in a certain way in India, or people who are visiting India, are guilty or can be guilty under Section 377, and that's really important to talk about, because I think that's been lost and it's been seen too much as an anti-gay law, and that's not the case entirely. But the other thing that I just wanted to add to your previous question is also that the RSS, which is the ideological arm of the BJP, which is the governing party at this point of time, recently said in a public statement that it would not allow either live-in relationships or homosexualities because it considered them Western imports. Now that's a bit ridiculous. It's almost like they were things, that Indians bought in duty-free and brought them to India, but that's not the case. This is how societies evolve and people evolve and choose to live their lives. And it's really important that even people who are going against the BJP are speaking with some amount of considered venom and anger, a lot of it which is entirely deserved, also need to see that there are ways of getting people to change their mind. So rather than just going and saying that this is a right-wing conservative party, it's important to actually engage people into the conversation and say, where is this conversation coming from? What is it that young Indians want? And particularly in the case of Narendra Modi, he was voted into power by the youngest nation in the world. If he's not going to respond to what the personal lives of these very young Indians is, then his party is going to be in trouble if they want to be elected again. So all of these things, which were never campaign issues for politicians, have become so at this point of time. And how they deal with it is going to be a test of both political acumen and indeed humanity as a whole. I'm somebody who is very privately and optimistic. I have a great pessimism about the weather, but some degree of optimism about politics. And while it is true that Mr. Modi has had some amount of trouble in the state of Gujarat in 2002, I personally feel he's also an incredibly shrewd statesman, in that he's not going to become parochial and insular and say that what he could get away with and do in Gujarat is something that's going to be permitted in India, particularly if he wants to position himself as a world leader, which is quite evident in the way that he's behaving. It's also quite extraordinary and laudable, the fact that he's reached out to the heads of Sri Lanka and Pakistan, who are, as we speak, in India and in for his swearing-in ceremony. So it is remarkable, because I don't think any other leader has had that level of political clarity and shrewdness to want to reach out to our neighbors in the way that he has at this point of time. You know, what has been remarkable about this election for me is to see how much subliminally people have been political. You know, people I had never expected to think to have very strong political opinions have been both divided and united by this, because they were so tired of the Congress government and they wanted out and they wanted to be free. So while it's been a sort of social media kind of advocacy that's happening, I hope that it's a first step. I hope that the generation that is now talking about how much they either hate or love Mr. Modi on Facebook are actually going to become participants in the process that allows Mr. Modi to become Prime Minister. So it's going to go from something that was quite decorative to something that's quite more intrinsic to who they are. I think that's really important, that they each individually take roles of political agency, and each one of them understands how powerful they can be if they wish to be.